Alright, so here I am. I've got everything ready here to run these cables. This dark one that you see here, brown and gray, that's like an old school Tsunami. I don't know if anybody that follows car audio brands and all that stuff, this Tsunami was supposed to be good back in the day. And the other day I was talking about the gauges for this, and how I was reducing gauge in order to be able to fit my speaker cables. And this is like some cheap Radio Shack cable. I didn't want to resort to using this, but you know, it's speaker cable. Not that all speaker cables are equal. The best thing to have is definitely enough gauge, and then the next best thing is that it's, yeah, I fucked up my finger there, that it's OFC or oxygen-free copper. Now this cable here, it's old, and this Tsunami one is old too. This is like from old installs that I kept, because when I would uninstall systems from old cars, I would keep all of the wiring and keep as much as I could. And anyway, I believe these are like I said, 16 gauge. And you know what, let's take a look at it. The Tsunami, I'm pretty sure that it's the same exact gauge as that Radio Shack one or whatever the hell. And I have like monster cable and all that shit. So let's see. So this is what I'm using. It's this is only being used for the short run from the mid-range to the crossover. That's it, for both of my mid-ranges. And the Tsunami cable, I'm positive that it's also 16 gauge. And what I'll do is I'll show another video when I strip these wires, and you could look at the both of them. The strands on this Radio Shack one are some big ass strands. In wall, no. How about in car? Yes. Old school stuff. Let's see. I'm just kind of reading what it says, but this is what I'm using. I don't know if we could see the end of it there. I mean, the problem with this bullshit is that, like the Tsunami cable, I'm sure it's the same exact gauge. Let's see, you could look at my dirty ass fingernail there, along with the cable. That Tsunami cable is essentially the same gauge, but this one has this fucking thick ass sleeve, or whatever the hell you want to call it. I'm sure you've noticed through all my videos I don't have the proper terminology for everything. So deal with it. This shit is thick as fuck. It's literally almost as thick as running my 12 gauge cable, which is the best cable I've bought in a long time. And I'm just stretching it out here. It's this Knukonceptz. I'm stretching it out to make sure that it reaches my trunk, because this needs to make it to the amp. But this Knukonceptz, wow. I mean, if with 14 gauge, and you know what? This whole time I've been calling this 12 gauge. And I chose to do 14 gauge for all the door speakers, because the runs aren't that long, and I need this shit to fit through places. But I mean, look at this. Look at the difference. This is fucking thick. And what I'm trying to say is that the Radio Shack cable, it almost takes as much room up as this shit right here. And this is 14 gauge. The other one, what do we look at? It was 16 gauge. So the sleeve on this is much less, and this is super flexible. I think the strands are much smaller. We could look at it there. 14 gauge, speaker cable. This is OFC, pure oxygen-free copper, ultra flex. So this shit's the bomb. And I bought some 10 gauge of this stuff for the my subwoofer. So really happy with that cable. Here I'm starting to stretch out, or I will be stretching out the my RCAs for the 4-channel amp. And I purchased this NVX. My amp is an NVX. It's the NVX 800.4. Before the 800, there's some letters there that I can't remember for the model number. It's a Class D amp, and I really hope that it sounds good. I know it's going to sound good. I hope it's a warm sounding amp, and I hear Class D amps aren't generally like that. So here's the, I believe I have 19 feet of this, and I'm hoping that it stretches all the way from the, and it will, from the back of my new head unit that you see there. I have to run this all along the back. I mean, running the cables is the toughest part of all this, and then putting on the panels. When you take off panels, sometimes you break clips. I mean, it's just, it goes on and on. So if I haven't said it 1,000 times, I'll say it again. This is a lot of work, and it's tough, especially if you're a perfectionist and want things to come out looking professionally. And so, damn, have to delete some videos off my phone because I guess I had a bunch of bullshit videos on there and my storage was full. So, yeah, got to download shit onto my computer. Anyway, this is what I'm pulling through now. I bundled up all these cables together. They're kind of staggered on here so I could thin this out. And I just have to get it through and pull it out through there and continue this process. Here's a video of this 14 gauge. I mean, look at how fucking thick this is. This is no joke. And let's see, this is going to be tough because I'm holding this phone. Alright, and what I'm using is these, let's see if you can see this. There we go. I'm using these ferrules here. I got a whole set of them, which was completely unnecessary. I don't know, just somebody suggested. Car Audio Fabrication channel suggested these, and man, they're sweet. They're pretty awesome, but most of the connections that I needed happen to be these connectors here, which I'm sure everybody's seen these. This is what's going into the crossover, which I have right here. Crossover takes those, and really I'm just using these at the woofer because the mid-range required these other things to plug in. I forget, I don't know exactly what they're called. And the same thing for the tweeter. So I ended up just using these here. So if I do any other electrical work in the future, then maybe these will work. Essentially what I'm doing is, I'll show you in another video how this goes on. So basically what I'm doing is that I've already crimped this one, but I'm using this tool here, and this goes at the end, and you crimp, you go really tight, and that's kind of like a vice grip, how it does it, and then I'll be able to put these into these speaker terminals and tighten it up, and we're all good. Alright, so here's my trunk, and what am I doing? I'm installing my 6x9s, which don't fit. Why? Because as you can see, this one here, these JBLs, you can see how I had to cut, because see the frame as it comes up, I had to cut the hole, and I was doing it with a Dremel. You could see how I was cutting over on the left side of that frame as all those, the ribbing comes up. I guess you could call those ribs, how the frame is made. See how it comes up and it's hitting metal, and that metal's bent down, is because I cut it with the Dremel, and I cut all that around on that side where you see it's all jagged metal. Definitely don't want to touch that with bare hands. And I had to cut over there because that's how this thing's shaped. Over here the clearance is fine. You could see like the black there, that's basically because that's the painted metal. And as you go over here, you see all that jagged. That's because I cut that with the Dremel so this could fit in there flush. And what happened to my Dremel? I burnt the motor. So now I'm doing this by hand on this side. You can see how I've cut it so that this fits. And how am I doing it? I'm doing it with this hand tool right here. So it's really just going, and it's taking forever, but god damn, this is nuts. And here's the speakers that this car comes with, which is again the Fosgate 6x9s, which is really looks like it's a 2.5-inch full range driver, or not full range, probably from mid to highs, whatever the hell it could do. And then this big ass 6x9 woofer. I mean, literally this thing is the size of, the magnet's like the same size as my the new 6x9s. And as you can see, these are 1 ohm, 50 watts. So at this system's supposed to, the Fosgate system runs at 2 ohms. Who knows what the whole ohmage with this speaker is here, but I guess if you take this to the JBL ohms, which is 2.5, these would be 150 watts. I mean, these did a lot of bass, and it's amazing what they could do, I'll tell you that. And then here are the new JBLs, so you could see how the shape of this, you see how I have to take off the top left and top right in order to get these things to sit flush. And these are 110 watts RMS. These are 2.5 ohm, which I don't see where it says it around here. 330 watts peak, and I'm going to be giving these easily with the new amp about 200 watts. Alright, so these things are finally installed. There's one right there, one of the 6x9s. Here is the other there, you can see it. And now I'm gonna show you from the inside how it looks like on the deck on the inside. So there they are right there. There's one, and there's the other there. So now I just have to put on the grills. These were put down with the butyl rope, so they are not budging, and then I screwed them down. So this is gonna be motherfucking banging.